Hi there, this is JKS Plays, also known as Sir JK Gardelade, here to provide yet another answer to a question that I asked myself. Is it possible to beat Pokemon Scarlet and Violet with just this one Pokemon? Say hello to Mismagius, the magician Pokemon that debuted in the Sinnoh region and my favorite all-time ghost type. Mismagius has a superb base stat total of 495, fully invested in its special stats and speed. It is kind of lacking on the physical side, but it learns a bevy of moves by technical machines and by leveling up the moment you expose a Misdreavus to a Duskstone. Not listed in this selection of moves is that Mismagius can also learn the TM for Dark Pulse. And I also think Mismagius has a pretty good shiny as well. Can this Generation 4 evolution of a Generation 2 original take me all the way to the end credits of Pokemon Violet? Well, let's find out together. Welcome to this Pokemon Violet solo challenge run as I try to conquer the Paldea region by using only a Mismagius. This is my first Pokemon Scarlet and Violet playthrough on the Nintendo Switch 2. And now for the rules. Number 1, I can only use Mismagius in all the battles. Plus I'll be going through every badge battle in the desired order it was meant for the player to do in Scarlet and Violet. The second rule is I will not allow the usage of items during battle like potions and full restores, but held items like Shell Bell and leftovers are acceptable for the run. The third rule, if necessary, I am going to allow 5 Terra-type changes, which includes the guaranteed change after defeating the 5th gym, where you can go to the Treasure Eatery in Medali Town to get 50 free normal Terra-type shards. For this run, I decided to enroll in the Uva Academy as the female avatar with the same color of hair and same hairstyle, which is kind of covered up by the hat, of a certain gym leader in Sinnoh that also has Mismagius as her ace. So with all that out of the way, let's begin. For this run, I've decided to bring from my Pokemon Violet main file to Pokemon Home to put in this playthrough of Pokemon Violet, this Misdreavus that I bred with 5 best IVs and 2 egg moves being Sucker Punch and Spite. For the first time in any of my playthroughs, I decided to fully max out 2 of Misdreavus' weakest stats, its HP and physical defense. It also came with a neutral serious nature. And after doing some more Pokemon Home switching around, I was able to get an early Duststone by completing the Paldea region Pokedex, using that one Duststone to evolve Misdreavus into Mismagius. After appropriately nicknaming this Mismagius Fantina, as you notice by the second it evolves, it learns some powerhouse special attacks like Power Gem, Mystical Fire, and Magical Leaf, along with one of the strongest ghost physical attacks, Phantom Force, the second Misdreavus is exposed to a Duskstone. For those of you who may not know, Mismagius cannot learn any new moves by itself the second you evolve a Misdreavus, so you have to teach it new moves by TM. And one of those TMs that Mismagius can learn, I know I'll put to good use in the long run, the Psychic Special Attack Stored Power. And before I head to Mesagoza, I am once again interrupted by my battle-loving neighbor with champion rank, Nemona. And Nemona comes at me with 2 Pokemon, and the first one ended up being Fuecoco, which reveals that I chose Quaxley at the start of the game. Fantina's first action against my rival starts off with Fuecoco easily getting dusted off by a super effective Power Gem, forcing Nemona to bring out her only other Pokemon for this first true fight in Pawmi, the Generation 9 Pikachu clone that terrestrializes into a Terra Electric type. But Pawmi got quickly eliminated by Mismagius delivering the 2-turn Phantom Force for the victory. And now I am free to enter the gate of the largest city in all of the Paldea region, Mesagoza. After doing some sightseeing and shopping in Delibird Presents to pick up some valuable held items that I no doubt will be beneficial throughout this run, I was confronted by Team Star. That's when Nemona gives me my very own Terra Orb, revealing to all for now that Mismagius is its true type, which would give its ghost type attacks double the same type attack bonus, but I couldn't hit a ghost move on the Team Star Grunt's Jungoose being the normal type, but it still went down anyway. After finally going through the Academy doors, I was able to unlock all 3 major stories of Victory Road, Path of Legends, and Starfall Street. Then after exiting through the West Gate, I was able to get 2 noteworthy TMs that Mismagius can learn in Hex and Thunderbolts, while also picking up a nearby Assault Vest. The Nintendo Switch 2, in my opinion, saved Scarlet and Violet, but even that does not change the fact that the first gym battle against Cortundo Bug Gym Leader Katie is still a complete pushover. All 3 of Katie's bugs quickly dropped like flies. The second Mismagius hurled some rocks at Nimble, Tarantula, and her ace, Bug Terra Teddy Ursa. They all went down in one hit to Mismagius' Power Gem, with Tarantula going down to a critical hit, making this the easiest gym badge of this entire challenge. After another embarrassing experience Katie was forced to endure back in Cortundo, Mismagius and I now targeted Stony Cliff Titan Cloth. This first phase against Cloth is completely free for Mismagius, considering Fantina is immune to all of Cloth's first 3 moves: Vice Grip, Block, and Rock Smash. 2 magical leaves powered up by the Wise Glasses held item knocked the giant crustacean into the second phase, where I team up with Arvin and his Shelder. For this part of the bout, my full intention was to paralyze Cloth with Thunder Wave, which I was able to do on the second turn, which eventually left Cloth fully paralyzed, which is crucial considering Cloth gains a 4th move in the second phase, being the Stab Rock Tomb, a physical attack that Mismagius simply cannot handle. This double stab terrestrialized hex attack from Mismagius brought Cloth all the way down to red health, once again activating its Anger Shell ability. To make matters even worse for the Raving Crab, it got fully paralyzed for the second consecutive turn. Shelder lowered the defense of Cloth even more with Leer, but one more hex attack from Fantina made for another easy badge to collect, as we conquer our first Titan of the run. Fantina and I are on a roll with no signs of slowing down. Before challenging for my 3rd badge, I decided to pick up another TM Mismagius can learn, the Ice Special Attack Icy Wind. Then I headed all the way over to Zapapico to pick up another crucial held item in the Rocky Helmet. Then I navigated through this East Province Area 3 cave that spawns more Pokemon than usual on the Nintendo Switch 2, navigating my way to get the Dark Pulse TM before heading back to Artisan to challenge for my 2nd gym badge of the run against Grass Gym Leader Brassius. Time to let Fantina cook once more, as it does so on Brassius' first 2 Pokemon with 2 servings of Mystical Fire, but Brassius' 3rd Pokemon is guaranteed to land an attack in Grass Terra Sudowoodo due to its Sturdy ability. Even this 3rd Mystical Fire that scored a critical hit was not enough to take Sudowoodo down because of that ability, leaving Sudowoodo with 1 HP left. However, Sudowoodo ending up knocking itself out when it connected with Trailblaze, considering I had Mismagius hold the Rocky Helmet. The early portion of this run has been a cakewalk so far, but things can change in an instant, as the next 2 badges I'll be targeting will feature Pokemon that puts Mismagius at a type disadvantage. And one of those battles is against the Open Sky Titan Bombardier, a level 20 Titan. For this battle, I had Mismagius slightly ahead of Bombardier at level 21, making good use of that Thunderbolt TM. And I also taught Mismagius another TM that it can learn, the Fairy Special Attack Draining Kiss that does physical damage, healing Mismagius close to full HP for the 2nd phase, which was definitely necessary considering this is the only Titan battle in this game where you are not allowed to heal in between. After lowering Bombardier's speed by a stage with Icy Wind, a super effective attack, the next 2 turns, I had Mismagius harshly lower Bombardier's physical attack to a -4 by turning on the Charm. Arven's Knackley was also faster considering it loved to spam rock polish which sharply boosted its own speed, and after hitting a super effective smackdown, Mismagius' next Draining Kiss took this stupid bird deep into the red, before Arven's Knackley ended up stealing the KO for the win with a rock throw in retaliation for taking Bombardier's rock throw, which was boosted by its rocky payload ability. With 4 badges now in my possession, the next badge is definitely going to be earned the hard way. To fully prepare for what's to come from Mismagius and myself, I headed all the way up north Glaciato Mountain towards the city of Montenevera to pick up another important held item in the Covert Cloak, which debuted in Generation 9. And now it's time for the bout that could potentially make or break the run. Time to throw down against the Team Star Dark Crew leader, the second squad's own Giacomo, who only carries 2 Pokémon for this first Starfall Street boss battle, but his first Pokémon, Poniard, was never an issue, as it immediately gets torched by Fantina's Mystical Fire. The real threat is always the second Starmobile, because of the move Wicked Torque, which has a small chance of putting Mismagius to sleep. That's why I had Mismagius use Protect on turn 1 to bait out what the Starmobile was going to do first, and I guessed right, considering it went for Wicked Torque on turn 1. On the second turn, to further discourage Giacomo for calling for Wicked Torque, I lowered the attack stat of the Starmobile by 2 stages with Charm, thanks to getting a bonus free turn when the Starmobile used Metal Sound to harshly lower Mismagius' special defense by 2, which allowed for me to simply trade attacks for the remainder of the battle by using Draining Kiss. And as you notice, Snarl does super effective damage, but it wasn't lowering Mismagius' special attack by a stage because of the fact that I had Mismagius hold the Covert Cloak. The only thing that could potentially go wrong is if any of the Snarl attacks landed at least 2 critical hits, but thankfully none of them did. And on this 4th and final Draining Kiss, Fantina was able to survive the most frightening battle of this entire solo challenge with a hard-fought victory. This was on my second attempt with Mismagius at level 25 because I was unable to win it on my first attempt at level 24 because I did not have the Covert Cloak. Heading back to Levincia town, I was greeted by my rival Nemona, who once again challenges me to battle. She has a team of 3 this time, but Mismagius quickly handled business on her Rockruff, Palmy, and her starter, now in its middle stage Crocalor, who went down to the combination of Power Gem followed by a double stab Terastallized Hex. Now on to the real reason why I came to Levincia, the challenge for my 3rd gym badge against the supercharged streamer Iono, a master of electric types. Iono's first Pokemon is Latrell, which gave me the opportunity to set up Mismagius' special attack and special defense by 1 stage on the first turn by using Calm Mind. Latrell then struck with Pluck, which didn't do too much damage, but it did steal and eat Mismagius' Cherry Berry. I then decided to use Calm Mind for a 2nd straight turn, putting Mismagius at a +2 in his special stats before being struck by a Spark, which didn't cause paralysis. Mismagius then finished off Latrell with a Draining Kiss, and since Iono's next Pokemon Luxio has the super effective Dark Physical Attack Bite, it brought out the Sinnoh Cat 2nd. Not bothered at all by Luxio's Intimidate, Mismagius quickly takes Luxio down with a +2 Hex, forcing Iono to bring in Belly Bolt next. The Gen 9 Electric type is bulky enough to withstand the +2 Hex, before striking back with an Electromorphosis boosted Spark. Once again, Fantina was able to avoid being paralyzed before finishing off Belly Bolt on the next turn with Draining Kiss. And now we're at the main event for this Levincia gym battle, as Iono's final Pokemon is her very own Mismagius, setting the stage for a mystical mirror match. Iono's Mismagius gets rid of all its weaknesses the moment it terastallizes into a Terra Electric type, and loves to use Confuse Ray to power up its own Hex attack. But Fantina was able to strike first with Hex, taking Iono's Mismagius deep into the red. Ionos Mismagius responds with a hex of its own, which barely tickled Fantina due to the fact that she was at +2 in its special stats. One more double stab Terra boosted hex later, and down goes Ionos Mismagius, securing me my 3rd gym badge of this solo challenge. Now with 6 badges claimed in total, time to keep this momentum rolling upward. Mismagius and I are now set to raid our 2nd Team Star base just outside of Levincia town, home of the Shutter Squad.
It's a new Viper!
Fantina now squares off against Mela, a master of fire types, whose lead Pokemon Torkoal immediately sets up the sun with its drought ability. But just outside of the Team Star Fire base is the TM for Rain Dance, which Mismagius can learn. On top of that, I also gave Mismagius a Damp Rock, which will make the rain last for 8 turns. Mismagius quickly wiped out the Fire Turtle in 2 turns with back-to-back Power Gem attacks. And now Mela is forced to rely on the Shutter Starmobile, whose AI probably saw that Mismagius is maxed out in physical defense, so it opted to use a nerfed Overheat on the first turn, which harshly lowered its own special attack by 2 stages. I then had Mismagius use Fake Tears to lower the Starmobile's special defense by 2 stages. Mela then switched it up to Blazing Torque, which thankfully didn't cause burn status. After using Fake Tears a second turn to put the Starmobile stats to a -4 in special defense, that Power Gem almost was a one-shot. A Power Gem on the very next turn sends the second Team Starmobile of this run into the scrap heap, giving Mismagius and I our 7th badge of the run. Hoping to continue striking while the iron is hot, Mismagius then took aim at taking down the lurking Steel Titan Orthworm, who instantly lost over 3/4 of its HP after being nailed by a super effective Mystical Fire. And then after missing Iron Tail, Orthworm was knocked into the second phase of the bout with a second Mystical Fire. In this phase, I team up with Arven and his Toadstool. On the first turn, I decided to lower Orthworm's physical attack by 2 with Charm, before Orthworm set up a Sandstorm. However, on the next turn, I got rid of the Sandstorm by setting up Sunny Day, which further increased the power of Mismagius' Mystical Fire on the next turn by 50%, taking the Titan down to the red. Arven's Toadstool finally connected with Supersonic on the second attempt to confuse Orthworm before the lurking Steel Titan goes down to Mismagius' Hex, a ghost special attack which doubles in power whenever the opposing Pokemon is suffering from a status condition, making this for another completely free win over a Titan, and getting our 8th badge in the process. I now made my way to Cascarava Town to take on Water Gym Leader Kofu, who leads off with Veluza, a part Psychic type. So I decided to teach Mismagius Dark Pulse for this battle, fishing for a flinch but didn't get it. Veluza was not able to get a critical hit with Aqua Cutter before going down to a second Dark Pulse. Kofu's second Pokemon Web Trio easily got dissected in one blow from Mismagius' Thunderbolt. And now Kofu only has his ace Pokemon, Water Terra Crabominable, remaining. Crabominable does have terrible special defense, but was still bulky enough to withstand Mismagius' first Thunderbolt, taking it to just over half of its health, before striking back with a powerful Water Stab Terra boosted Crab Hammer. Crabominable was taken down to red health because of Mismagius holding the Rocky Helmet, before one more Thunderbolt ended the fight. With a few problems to overcome, Mismagius finishes off the first half of the solo challenge by collecting our 9th badge. Now that we're in the second half of the solo challenge, I decided to do some washing on Mismagius to max out its friendship before heading over to Tag Tree Thicket in pursuit of raiding our 3rd Team Star base.
How about a new Corvette?
As I engage in combat against the leader of the Team Star Poison Crew, Atticus. The Navi Squad wielder of Toxic Trouble leads off with Skuntank, a Pokemon that has the Stench ability, which has the small chance of flinching an opponent after landing an attack. That's exactly why I had Mismagius go on a substitute strategy. Another reason why I went with this tactic is because of the fact that Skuntank has Sucker Punch, a dark physical attack that only works if Mismagius has an attack prepared. However, Sucker Punch only has 5 power points, which made it that much simpler for me to have Mismagius set up its special attack and special defense by 1 stage on every turn Skuntank tries to go for Sucker Punch by using Calm Mind. All the while, Mismagius was able to heal up back to full HP with Leftovers, a held item that gradually gains HP on a Pokemon that is not at full HP already. Having Mismagius set up a substitute on the first turn was also very important, considering on that same turn, Skuntank tried to badly poison Mismagius by using Toxic. By the time Skuntank used all 5 Sucker Punches, that failed of course, Mismagius set up a 6 Calm Mind to fully max out its special stats. Skuntank tried to break the substitute by using Venoshock, but was unable to do it, leading to Skuntank's demise with Mismagius' used Draining Kiss, making the rest of this bout a complete massacre, as Mismagius delivered 1-hit KOs on Revavroom, Muck, and the Navi Starmobile with stored power. If you don't come fully prepared for this battle, Atticus will likely stomp on you while your Pokémon succumbs to his venomous ways. But Mismagius proved it can get the job done on its own for our 10th badge. The good times kept on coming for Fantina, as she now goes up against Larry, the normal gym leader of Medali Town. Normal types can't hit ghost types, and vice versa. So once again, I decided to trust the substitute process with Fantina by setting up a sub immediately on turn 1 against Larry's lead Pokemon, Komala, who only has a moveset of Sucker Punch, Slam, and Yawn. And since Slam is a normal type move, Larry's always going to call for Sucker Punch against the ghost type, allowing for Mismagius to set up its special stats on the next 4 turns by using Calm Mind, before Fantina proceeded to sweep through Larry's entire team with 3 servings of stored power for our relatively easy 5th gym badge victory, putting us at a total of 11 badges in this Pokemon Violet Mismagius only solo challenge, but we still can't leave Medali Town just yet. Right after defeating Larry, I get confronted in the Medali Gym lobby by the top champion of the Paldea region herself. Gita congratulates me on another gym badge win, but before I can exit through that door, I get confronted by Nemona, who wants to challenge me to another battle to see how much Mismagius and I have gotten stronger since the last time we battled in Levincia. Of course, Nemona would challenge me right after I just had a gym battle, but fortunately, Gita has my back as she healed up Mismagius for the battle to come, as she observes me up close for the first time as I take on Nemona. She now comes at me with a team of 4 Pokemon, adding a Goomy to her team, and her Rockruff is now evolved into a midday Lycanroc with a super effective dark move Bite. There was no way I was going to rely on the substitute strategy this time. Because Lycanroc has Bite, it'll be super effective against Mismagius, and it will break the sub. So I had no other alternative than for Mismagius to set up its special stats on the first 2 turns by using Calm Mind while taking these bite attacks from Lycanroc. I then had Mismagius heal up with Draining Kiss, taking off 2/3 of Lycanroc's HP before taking another bite. I decided to set up one more time with Calm Mind, which puts Fantina at a +3 in its special attack and special defense. After taking one more bite and then gradually healing up some of it back with Leftovers, I finally took Lycanroc out by having Mismagius use a second Draining Kiss. Then Nemona made one crucial mistake in bringing out the special attacking Goomy second. This allowed for me to have Mismagius use Calm Mind 3 more times to fully max out Mismagius' special stats while close to being healed up to full with Leftovers, considering these Dragon Pulse attacks from Goomy are literally doing nothing to Mismagius. And once Fantina hit a +6 in her special stats, it was time to release all of that stored power. dropping on the heads of Goomy, Palmo, and Nemona's starter, now a fully evolved Skeledirge, for another annihilating performance by Fantina the Mismagius. And as a reward for defeating Nemona this time, Top Champion Gita gives you 5 Terra Blast TMs. After defeating Nemona once again, I decided to visit the land of Kitakami, unlocking the hidden treasure of Area 0 Part 1, the Teal Mask DLC, to get 3 more noteworthy TMs that Mismagius can learn in Will-O-Wisp, the Grass Special Attack Energy Ball, and the Special Attack Setup Move Nasty Plot, as I now lock myself into battle against the Master of Ghosts herself, the MIC of RIP Rhyme in Montenegro Town, in what is the base game of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet's only double battle. Considering this is a solo challenge, I had to get a low-level Magikarp to team up with Mismagius. That way the AI sees a KO on the very first turn as I terrestrialize Mismagius into a Terra Normal type, taking advantage of the free, guaranteed optional change of a Terra type after defeating the 5th gym. And as Mimikyu took out Magikarp with the Shadow Sneak, Banette tried to do the same thing to the now terrestrialized Mismagius, now becoming an immunity due to the fact that Mismagius is a Terra Normal type, before Banette got wiped out by a Dark Pulse. And at the end of the opening turn, Mismagius got an Omni Boost due to the gym's gimmick, right before Rhyme sent out her 3rd Pokemon Houndstone, who got struck down to 1 HP with a +1 Dark Pulse. Mismagius had to take both a critical hit slash from Mimikyu and a play rough from Houndstone, who ended up knocking itself out due to Mismagius holding the Rocky Helmet. And at the end of this turn, Fantina got a boost to both its attack stats, putting Mismagius at a +2 right before Rhyme brought out her ace Pokemon Toxtricity, terrestrializing one of my favorite Pokemon from the Galar region into a Terra Ghost type, before Toxtricity quickly got wiped out by a +2 Hex from Mismagius, who had to take a 2nd straight slash from Mimikyu. But at the end of this 3rd turn, Fantina got one final boost to her attack stats, putting Mismagius at a +3. I then had Mismagius use Draining Kiss to break Mimikyu's disguise finally, then Rhyme through by having Mimikyu set up a light screen before her final Pokemon goes down to a +3 Hex for our 6th Gym Badge triumph in this Mismagius-only solo challenge. This was a satisfying win because after defeating Rhyme, she gives you Mismagius' most important move of them all as a technical machine, the strongest stab move that she can learn, the Ghost Special Attack Shadow Ball. After getting 12 badges, the Quaking Earth Titan and the Psychic Gym in Alphanauta Town both cap out at level 45, giving you the option to go with either one of them next, and I elected to go after the 7th gym of this run first, but before that happens, I had to deal with Nemona once again. Nemona's Lycanroc goes down in 2 turns thanks to a couple of energy balls from Mismagius, which sandwiched Lycanroc's super effective crunch attack. Nemona now brings in Sliggoo, which gave me the freedom to set up Mismagius' special stats once again, just like last time. However, this time I did not go all the way up to +6, as I only used Calm Mind 5 times, before sweeping through the rest of Nemona's team with back-to-back Draining Kisses that healed Mismagius back up to full HP and wiping out Sliggoo and Palmont, before leveling Skeledirge with a +5 Power Gem for the win. After yet another thrilling win over Nemona, I decided to step up and challenge my favorite gym leader in all of Paldea, the Psychic Leader Tulip, whose first Pokemon is Farigiraf. I set up Mismagius' special attack by 2 with Nasty Plot before taking a nasty critical hit crunch. But from that point on, after healing up with leftovers, Tulip was officially checkmated, as the long-necked giraffe goes down in 1 hit to a +2 Dark Pulse. Then Fantina can unleash Shadow Ball for the first time in battle, as the rest of Tulip's team, Espathra, Gardevoir, and Psychic Terraflorges all get absolutely eradicated by a +2 Shadow Ball for another one-sided gym battle victory. Now the proud owner of 13 badges in this run, Tulip graciously gives you, as a result of defeating her, another TM that Mismagius can learn, the hard-hitting special attack Psychic. Next on my journey in Paldea with Mismagius, I headed up Glaciato Mountain to pick up the Modest Mint, which I immediately fed Mismagius before taking on the Violet exclusive Quaking Earth Titan Iron Treads. The futuristic Donphan is a ground and steel type, but ground moves can't hit Mismagius because of its levitate ability, and the Treads is still vulnerable to fire type moves like Mystical Fire, which Mismagius used 2 times to set up the second phase, where I team up with Arven and his Clavell, who harshly lowered the speed of Iron Treads by 2 with Scary Face as I set up the Sun on the first turn. On the next turn, I cut in half the attack power of the Ironclad Elephant by burning Iron Treads with Will-O-Wisp, as Clavell missed Fire Fang. However, on the third turn, Clavell came through with a Sun-boosted Fire Fang that also landed a crit, as I set up Mismagius' special attack to 2 stages plus with Nasty Plot, putting Fantina in prime position to get another free win over a Titan with 1 more serving of Mystical Fire that was also boosted by the Sun. Make it 4 Titans compromised and 14 badges officially claimed. As I head back up Glaciato Mountain in pursuit of my 8th and final gym badge, which is defiantly guarded by Ice Gym leader Grusha. His first Pokemon is Frostmoth, who loves to set up Tailwind on the first turn to boost the speed of Grusha's team for the next 3 turns, which is why I had Mismagius set up on turn 1 with Nasty Plot. After taking the Blizzard, Frostmoth got one shot by a quad-effective Power Gem. Despite the Tailwind being up, Mismagius is still faster than Grusha's second Pokemon, Beartic, who got melted away in seconds with Mystical Fire. On the last turn of Tailwind, Grusha's third Pokemon Set Titan was able to land the first attack with Ice Spinner before it gets domed by a +2 Power Gem, leaving Grusha with only his final Pokemon, Ice Terra Altaria. But the Dragon and Flying type from the Hoenn region never got a chance to make a move, as Altaria got absolutely smoked by a +2 Mystical Fire, which allows for Fantina and I to officially earn all 8 Paldea region gym badges. And as a result of that, I am eligible to challenge the Pokemon League with 3 badges left to claim in this Pokemon Violet Mismagius only solo challenge. Next stop is North Province Area 3, where the 4th Team Star base resides. And my next opponent is Team Star Rukba Squad leader and a master of fairy types, Ortega. For this first turn, I had Mismagius set up its special attack by 2 again with Nasty Plot against Ortega's lead Pokemon, Azumarill, who missed its first attempt at trying to nail Mismagius with a huge power-boosted Play Rough, and never got a chance to attack again after it got one shot by a Thunderbolt. Dachshund also went down in 1 hit to Shadow Ball, an attack that Ortega's next Pokemon, the part normal type Wigglytuff, is immune to. Even at +2, Thunderbolt still was not enough to get a first hit KO, but Wigglytuff ended up taking itself out because of the fact that Mismagius was holding the Rocky Helmet when Wigglytuff connected with Play Rough. All that's left for Ortega is the Rukba Starmobile. A +2 Shadow Ball took nearly half of that large health bar of the Starmobile, who put itself in knockout range when it hit Mismagius still holding the Rocky Helmet with Steel Roller. Then this second Shadow Ball sends this 4th Team Starmobile into the junkyard. Much to the chagrin of Ortega, who is Team Star's mechanic, who was still sportsmanlike enough to give me the TM for Dazzling Gleam. I navigated my way through North Province Area 2's treacherous bamboo forest in attempting to raid the final Team Star base.
A new Porsche!
Against Airy, the leader of the Team Star fighting crew, whose first Pokemon, Toxicroak, has Brick Break, a move that Mismagius is immune to, and Poison Jab, a move that Fantina resists, which means Airy is only going to call for Sucker Punch against a Ghost type, considering that's also in Toxicroak's moveset. So I already know the drill at this point. I had Mismagius set up its special attack all the way to +6 on the first 3 turns with Nasty Plot, then burned Toxicroak on the 4th turn with Will-O-Wisp. I intentionally used Will-O-Wisp again on the 5th turn, knowing that it's going to fail after Toxicroak used its 5th and final Sucker Punch. I changed Mismagius' Terra type back to Ghost, giving Mismagius its true type once again, before one-shotting all of Ares' Pokemon. Toxicroak goes down to a quad-effective Psychic. Lucario and the incoming Annihilate both went down to a double-stab Terrestrialized +6 Shadow Ball. Ares' penultimate Pokemon before the Starmobile in Passimian, along with the Cap Starmobile itself, both got destroyed by a +6 Psychic, which means all 5 Team Starmobiles have been officially impounded, giving Fantina and I 17 total badges. Without question, the area that got the biggest improvement in Scarlet and Violet on the Nintendo Switch 2 is Casseroya Lake, home to the False Dragon Titan Dondozo, the final boss Mismagius and I have to take down before heading over to the Pokémon League. Mismagius struck hard with a super effective Thunderbolt. After shaking off an Aqua Tail, a second Thunderbolt zapped the Catfish into the second phase, where I team up with Arven and his Greedent. From this point on, the teamwork Arven and I displayed with each other against Dondozo was unstoppable, as Mismagius scored the KO with an Energy Ball Thunderbolt combination. Arven's Greedent put Dondozo in KO range before the Thunderbolt with a takedown, setting up the 3rd and final phase of this Titan bout against the real Dragon Titan Tatsugiri. All I did throughout this entire sequence against Tatsugiri was spam Draining Kiss, which allows for Mismagius to heal whenever it's not at full HP and do super effective damage against the Dragon and Water type Sushi monster. Arven's Greedent was simply magnificent, lowering Tatsugiri's physical defense by a stage on the 1st turn with Tail Whip, before striking Tatsugiri with 2 consecutive takedown attacks on the next 2 turns, before this 4th and final Draining Kiss from Fantina secures our 5th victory over a Titan. For this battle, Mismagius was at level 60 and I didn't even give Fantina an item to hold. And as Tatsugiri sinks down into the abyss of Casseroya Lake, Mismagius and I officially own all 18 badges. Pokémon League, here we come. Here are the final effort values and individual values for my Fantina to Mismagius. Its HP and defense are still maxed out, nature is set to modest, and for this first Elite Four battle I have a full attacking set, giving Mismagius the held item Expert Belt, which powers up super effective attacks by 20%, which should come in mighty handy in this first Elite Four fight against Rika, a master of ground types. Mismagius has no clear-cut advantage in this battle, but will be immune to ground type attacks because of the ability Levitate. Rika's first Pokemon, Whiscash, goes down easily to a quad-effective Energy Ball. I also want to point out Mismagius started off this run through the Pokemon League at level 65, as Rika's second Pokemon, Dugtrio, also went down on the 1st turn to Energy Ball. Dugtrio had the Dark move Sucker Punch in his moveset, but didn't use it, considering I figured Dugtrio was going to start off the turn by using Sandstorm like it usually does. Rika's 3rd Pokemon, Camerupt, however, became somewhat of a problem after it used Yawn on the 1st turn before going down on turn 2 to Mismagius' Shadow Ball. And at the end of the turn, Mismagius was put to sleep, leaving Fantina wide open to be hit by attacks without being able to defend itself against Rika's 3rd Pokemon, Donphan, who can't hit Mismagius with Earthquake, and Mismagius resists Poison Jab. So Rika's best option is fishing for a critical hit with Stone Edge. On the 3rd attempt, Stone Edge missed due to the power of friendship, allowing for Mismagius to heal a bit with Draining Kiss before Stone Edge missed again. RNG Luck was smiling down upon Mismagius after healing up with Draining Kiss again. Donphan connected with Stone Edge for the 3rd and final time before it got wiped out by a super effective Energy Ball. And now Rika was down to her final Pokemon, her ace, Ground Terra Clodsire, who in all my experiences of playing Pokemon Scarlet and Violet loves to protect stall and badly poison opposing Pokemon with Toxic. which is Rika's main form of strategy. Clodsire used Toxic on the first turn after taking a super effective energy ball, which plays right into Rika's hands. But after the second turn, when Clodsire protected, the power of friendship came through in the clutch once again, as Fantina was able to expel the poison, before finishing off Clodsire for the victory with a second energy ball, securing our first victory in the Elite Four. The second matchup in the Elite Four is against my second favorite member of the Elite Four in Paldea. She's also who I believe is the youngest Elite Four member in all of the Pokemon games, and the steel-loving type Poppy. I also think it's cute that her first Pokemon is also the ace Pokemon of another character in the Pokemon gaming series that also has the name of a flower. Caparaja struck hard on Mismagius with Heavy Slam after I set up Mismagius' special attack by 2 with Nasty Plot, before Caparaja got burned by Mystical Fire for a one-hit KO. I also traded the Expert Belt for leftovers for this battle, considering healing was of the utmost importance for Mismagius, considering all of Poppy's Pokemon but one are physical attackers. Poppy's third Pokemon, Bronzong, got deleted by a +2 Shadow Ball, and in comes that Pokemon I was talking about that is Poppy's only special attacker in Magnezone. Unless you have a Pokemon with Mold Breaker, Magnezone will never go down on the first hit because of its sturdy ability. Then Magnezone annoyingly sets up a light screen before going down to Mismagius' second Mystical Fire. And as Mismagius gets valuable HP back with leftovers, it sets the stage for Poppy's ace Pokemon, who does have Mold Breaker as its ability, in the Steel Terra Tinkaton, who has the moveset of Brick Break, Stone Edge, Play Rough, and the only move I was concerned about, its powerful base 160 power move, Gigaton Hammer. As Mismagius took half of the HP of Tinkaton away with Mystical Fire, Poppy immediately calls for Gigaton Hammer to be delivered, a move that's also 100% accurate, and it struck for massive damage. But the biggest drawback in Gigaton Hammer is that it cannot be used twice in a row. Fantina's second Mystical Fire would have knocked out Tinkaton if it weren't for the light screen, but it did take Poppy's precious Pokemon deep into the red before Tinkaton connected with Play Rough. But one more Mystical Fire from Mismagius finally finished Tinkaton off, securing our second win in this Paldea Elite Four Gauntlet. Poppy put up the good fight, but even that wasn't enough to take down Fantina. And now for the third battle in the Elite Four against my favorite Paldea Elite Four member, who also just so happens to be a normal type gym leader in Larry, now sporting a team with flying types. Once again on the opening turn, I sharply boost Mismagius' special attack by 2 stages with Nasty Plot, considering Larry's first Pokemon, Trophius, loves to set up the sun on the opening turn to activate Chlorophyll. Mismagius whiffed on an Icy Wind on the next turn, but Trophius then followed that up by missing what could have been a one-turn Solar Beam, which afforded me the chance to use Nasty Plot a second time, putting Mismagius' special attack stat to a +4 before getting nailed by a Solar Beam from Trophius. After getting some HP back with leftovers, I opted for the 100% accurate Power Gem to take Trophius down, putting Mismagius in a very advantageous position, considering it outspeeds all of Larry's remaining Pokemon, and at +4 in special attack, there was no way any of Larry's Pokemon was going to survive. The combination of Thunderbolt, Icy Wind, and Power Gem easily got rid of Staraptor, Altaria, and Pom-Pom Oricorio in that order, forcing Larry to call upon his new ace Pokemon in Flying Terra Flamigo, the only Pokemon on Larry's team that has a super effective attack against Mismagius, which is the Dark Physical Attack Throat Chop. But on this day, Fantina was just too good, as a +4 Thunderbolt zaps Flamigo out of existence for our third consecutive Elite Four triumph. The Turn 1 Nasty Plot setup worked to perfection against the previous 2 members of the Elite Four, so I put it into practice again versus Grandpa Hassel, the final member of the Elite Four and a master of Dragon types. After using Nasty Plot on turn 1, the power of friendship once again was clicking when Noivern missed Dragon Pulse, allowing for me to set up Nasty Plot a second straight turn. And after taking a Dragon Pulse when Noivern finally hit, it was too little too late, which means all 5 of Larry's Pokémon is about to get clapped by a bevy of attacks from Mismagius with its special attack stat at a +4. Power Gem obliterated Noivern, Dragalge went down to Psychic, while Haxorus, Flapple, and Dragon Terra Baxcalibur all got blinded by the lights from the Fairy special attack Dazzling Gleam. Fantina was simply fabulous, putting us in position to have a showdown with top champion Gita at the pinnacle of the Pokémon League. For this championship battle against Gita, I made sure Mismagius was holding the leftovers item again, considering 2 of Gita's Pokémon will have a super effective dark attack against Mismagius, and I also made sure Fantina had a full attacking set because of the unique ability of the first Pokémon Gita brings out. Hit the music! And that first Pokémon I'm talking about is Gita's lead Espathra, which has the ability Opportunist, which copies any stat boost of the opposing Pokémon. Fantina got off to a fantastic start by defeating Espathra in one hit with Shadow Ball. But in comes Gita's second Pokémon, King Gambit, which has the Supreme Overlord ability, which powers up its attack stats whenever a Pokémon in Gita's party is already defeated. And you're going to see how hard this Kowtow Cleave hits on Mismagius after it took a Mystical Fire. Fantina was left with just a third of her HP before gaining some of it back with leftovers as the aftermath of being struck by King Gambit's signature maneuver, before King Gambit got roasted on the next turn by Mismagius' second Mystical Fire. Gita then summons in her third Pokemon, Avalugg, which does have the super effective dark move Crunch, but Avalugg is notoriously weak in special defense as it got some rocks thrown at its dome piece by Mismagius' Power Gem. Gita now brings in her fourth Pokemon, Gogoat, another physical attacker that is weak to Mystical Fire. Gita decides to throw her Gogoat by the wayside by using Bulk Up, which only powers up the attack and defense of Gogoat, leaving it prey to being knocked out by a second Mystical Fire. Mismagius is finally back to over half of its HP with leftovers healing as Gita summons in her penultimate Pokemon before her ace, Invalusa, who gets zapped down to red health immediately with a Thunderbolt before striking back with Liquidation, which put Mismagius back into orange health. Veluza was a goner on the next turn, courtesy of a second Thunderbolt. And now all that remains for Gita is her ace Pokemon, Rock Terra Glimora, a rock and poison type that has the moveset of the Stab Rock Terra Blast, which will hit neutrally, Earth Power, which will not strike Mismagius because of Fantina's Levitate ability, the Poison Stab move Sludge Wave, and the Fairy special attack Dazzling Gleam. Mismagius was able to strike first with a double stab terrestrialized Shadow Ball, as the power of friendship once again caused Glimora to whiff the normally 100% accurate Dazzling Gleam, which opened the door wide for Fantina to deliver the final championship clinching knockout lethal blow with this double stab Terra boosted critical hit Shadow Ball. Down goes Glimora, as Fantina, the Mismagius, and I are officially crowned as Paldea Region Champions, capping off a relatively dominant solo performance in the Pokémon League with 5 battles remaining in the challenge. After placing the Paldea Champion ribbon on my marvelous Mismagius, we decided to meet up with Arvin in front of the Pokepath Lighthouse in our quest to finish the Path of Legend story first. Once again, I had Mismagius start off by using Nasty Plot on the first turn, considering Arvin's lead Pokemon, Greedent, has 2 attacks that can't even touch Mismagius, an Earthquake and the normal physical attack Body Slam, which means its best attack is Psychic Fangs, which allows for Mismagius to freely set up all the way to +6 in special attack. And once the setting up was done, it was lights out for Arven's team of 6 Pokemon. Greedent was the first to go down, courtesy of Draining Kiss. Mystical Fire wipes out both Clavell and Toedscruel. Fantina had 2 super effective energy balls reserved for both Garganacl and Cloyster, and Arven's ace Pokemon, which does have the type advantage, in Dark Terramabostif, was simply no match for Fantina the Mismagius, who sealed off this bout in decisive fashion with a Draining Kiss, which put an emphatic close to the Path of Legend story. After defeating Arven, I headed back over to Mismagius, the place where my solo challenge with Mismagius officially started, as I meet up with Nemona for one final battle between 2 Paldea region champions. I entered this battle with Mismagius at level 75, and it will stay that way for the duration of it because you do not gain any experience for this fight. Nemona now has a solid and well-balanced team of 6, anchored by her fully evolved Skeleturge, who now comes equipped with its best ghost special attack Shadow Ball, a move I had decided to leave out of Mismagius' own moveset, but I still went with a full attacking style for this fight, considering Nemona has a team you need to take seriously. Especially her lead Pokemon Lycanroc, who's been a nuisance in past battles against Nemona. But this time, Lycanroc went down in a flash thanks to an energy ball. Nemona's second Pokemon, Palmot, did not fare any better as it also went down to a critical hit Draining Kiss. Fantina was going above and beyond her own performing capabilities, but I knew Fantina had to grind it out against Nemona's third Pokemon, the Dunsparce, whose only attack it can hit Mismagius with is Dragon Rush, considering Mismagius is immune to Hyper Drill being a ghost and cannot get hit by Drill Run because of Mismagius' Levitate ability. The triple segmented snake got knocked out in 3 turns after taking a second Draining Kiss from Fantina, who then followed that up by immediately erasing Earthworm from the equation with Mystical Fire, forcing Nemona to bring out her 5th Pokemon in Goodra, who I cannot set up on at this time, considering I don't have Calm Mind or Nasty Plot in Mismagius' moveset. So Mismagius needed to stay on the aggressive with a flurry of attacks like Draining Kiss and Power Gem. By the end of this portion of the battle, Mismagius only had to take 2 Dragon Pulse attacks from Goodra before it went down to a 3rd Draining Kiss, leaving Nemona with only 1 Pokemon left, her ace Pokemon, the Dirge. It all comes down to this, to determine who is the ultimate champion in all of the Paldea region once Nemona terrestrialized Skeleturge into a Terra Fire type. I was pleased to see that Power Gem took off half of Skeleturge's HP before Mismagius had to take a super effective Shadow Ball to the face. But on this second Power Gem, Mismagius completely overperformed one more time as that Power Gem scored a decisive critical hit. The Dirge bites the dust as Mismagius and I have defeated Nemona, keeping my undefeated streak against her alive. And all of the Paldea region is forced to recognize that I am the strongest trainer in the region, as the Victory Road storyline has officially came to an end with one more story to complete. I wasn't able to celebrate too much my victory over Nemona. The second I left the Uva Academy entrance, I was immediately thrust into battle against Mr. Clavell, who has a dangerous team of Pokemon. 5 of his team of 6 have a super effective attack against Mismagius, including his lead Pokemon Oranguru, who hit foul play before being knocked out by a second Dark Pulse. The director's second Pokemon Poltergeist has pathetic defenses, making it extremely vulnerable to Mismagius' Shadow Ball. The third Pokemon Clavell brought out is Gyarados. This Power Gem from Mismagius took the Kanto-Riten powerhouse deep into the red before it struck Mismagius hard with a super effective crunch. The second Power Gem finished Gyarados off, bringing in Clavell's next threat, Houndoom, who thankfully got one shot by a Power Gem. I once again gave Mismagius the expert belt to hold, powering up its super effective attacks, like this mystical fire, 4 times effective in wiping out Clavell's 5th Pokémon Abomasnow, which forced the director to bring in his biggest threat on his team in Meowscarada, terastallizing into a Terra Grass type. Mismagius struck first with Mystical Fire for enormous damage, but Meowscarada has the ghost physical attack Shadow Claw, which Fantina somehow withstood at 46 HP, before one more serving of Mystical Fire burned down the Weed Cat. If Meowscarada's Shadow Claw landed a critical hit, that would have forced a reset, but fortunately Mismagius hung tough as we now take on the true founder of Team Star, Penny. The strong bond of Mismagius and I will be put to the ultimate test against her team of 6 evolutions, including her lead Pokemon Umbreon. Penny gave me a free turn by using Baby Doll Eyes, allowing for Mismagius to strike with 2 straight Draining Kisses. The second one ended up critting, before Mismagius had to eat a Dark Pulse before finishing off Umbreon with a 3rd Draining Kiss. I had Mismagius hold the Assault Vest to withstand the special attacks coming from 4 of Penny's 6 evolutions. Flareon isn't one of them, as it struck for a hard-hitting Flare Blitz, which caused a burn status that was only temporary considering Fantina shook off the burn before using a less effective Draining Kiss to heal up, finishing Flareon off. Draining Kiss only has 10 power points, but after taking a strong Hydro Pump from Penny's 3rd evolution Vaporeon, I needed to use Draining Kiss for a 6th time in this bout, getting Mismagius back to green health. Fortunately, the power of friendship once again showed up at the exact moment I needed it to, causing Vaporeon to miss Hydro Pump, before it was put down for the count by Fantina's Thunderbolt, which was kind of a sign considering Penny brought out her 4th evolution, the Electric-type Jolteon. Mismagius' 7th Draining Kiss of this bout struck for a quarter of Jolteon's HP, before it missed on its first opportunity at dropping Thunder. I then had Mismagius use Mystical Fire, which has the added effect of lowering the target's Pokemon's special attack before being struck by Thunder on the next 2 turns from Jolteon. The combination of the Assault Vest and the 1 Mystical Fire was able to keep Mismagius in green health once Jolteon went down with Draining Kiss. Then Leafeon got taken out quickly by Mystical Fire, and now a grueling battle of attrition was about to take place the second Penny brought in her ace, Fairy Terra Sylveon. I was in full defensive mode by using Mystical Fire on the first turn to shorten the punishment it was about to take from Sylveon's super effective Shadow Ball, but by continually using Mystical Fire, it will constantly lower Sylveon's special attack stat. The second one scored a clutch crit, forcing Penny to call for Sylveon to deliver its double-stab terastallized Moonblast for more damage. Moonblast also has a 10% chance of dropping the opposing Pokemon's special attack by a single stage. After Mismagius hit this 4th straight Mystical Fire, at -4, this double-stab terastallized Moonblast did indeed get that secondary effect. Fantina finally had enough, finishing off this fight in shocking fashion by defeating Sylveon with a -1 Thunderbolt. All 3 main quests are officially done, but there is still one more fight left in order to finish off this run. Mismagius and I have overcame every single obstacle that has been placed in front of us in this Pokemon Violet Mismagius Only Solo Challenge. I meet up with Arven, Nemona, and Penny for the final time, not as adversaries, but as allies, as we ride atop the box legendary Miraidon for the Way Home finale, flying down the great crater of Paldea to the deepest depths of Area Zero, where I, along with Fantina, will go to war against Professor AI Toro and his impeccable team of 6 future Paradox Pokemon. Mismagius, believe it or not, matches up fairly well against Toro's team. Adding on to the fact that Mismagius is a ghost type with the Levitate ability, it will be immune to 5 combined attacks of Toro's 3 physical attackers, Iron Hands, Iron Thorns, and his ace, Iron Valiant. The only Pokemon on Toro's team that has a super effective attack against Mismagius is the Dark and Flying type Iron Jugless, who will no doubt come out second in Toro's battle order of rotation for this fight. But before the Jugless shows up, Mismagius has to deal with Toro's lead Pokemon Iron Moth first. The futuristic Volcarona is a fire and poison type, making it 2 times vulnerable to psychic attacks. The Moth then responded with its best move, Fiery Dance, which fortunately did not give the Moth a special attack boost. After healing up with leftovers, Mismagius scored the first KO of this matchup with another Psychic. With Iron Moth now disposed of, Toro was forced to bring out Iron Jugless immediately to confront Mismagius. The futuristic Hydreigon has a nasty Dark Pulse, but Mismagius was able to get the first blow in with a super effective Draining Kiss to once again heal up close to full HP before the retaliatory Dark Pulse almost brought Mismagius down to half of his health. Mismagius was able to heal up again with the combination of this Draining Kiss and leftovers, which took Iron Jugless out. With 2 of Toro's Paradox Pokemon now gone, he decided to bring out Iron Thorns next. This was the time that I felt was right to terrestrialize Fantina for the final time in this run into a Terra Ghost type. The futuristic Tyranitar has 2 moves that can't touch Mismagius in Brick Break and Earthquake. The only 2 moves it can hit Mismagius with are the stab moves of Thunder Punch and Stone Edge, which actually missed after Mismagius hit its first double stab terrestrialized Shadow Ball before a second one finished off Iron Thorns. Suddenly, this fight started to take a drastic turn for the worse for AI Toro the moment he brought Iron Bundle out forth. The futuristic Delibird knockoff got zapped right back into the time machine where it came from with Mismagius' Thunderbolt, forcing Toro to bring out the bulky Iron Hands next, who immediately got a special defense drop when it took a stinging Shadow Ball from Mismagius. Iron Hands Thunder Punch failed to paralyze before it got wiped out by Mismagius' Draining Kiss. And now Toro is down to his final Pokemon, the Fighting and Fairy type Iron Valiant. The futuristic Gallade Gardevoir immediately gets its attack stat heightened on sight the second its booster energy activates its Quirk Drive. But my precious Fantina was able to make one final move, polishing off this fight, the challenge, and Iron Valiant by making some psychic noise. And that is how I managed to defeat all of Pokemon Violet with only 1 Mismagius. This was a real smooth run on the Nintendo Switch 2 for my second ever Pokemon Solo Challenge, which made for a lot of fun. It also was my fastest of all the solo challenges, considering it only took 11 hours and 13 minutes to complete. And of course, I enjoyed every single second of it. To all of you who took the time out and wanted to view this from the beginning to the end and enjoyed this experience along with me, I sincerely thank you from the bottom of my heart. If you love content like this, be sure to leave a like. And if you are a newcomer to this channel, please consider clicking on the subscribe button, because every subscription tells me that I am doing something right and will further inspire me to want to make even more gaming content. And I also want to personally thank Ember Z Painter and Mantine Matt for the 2 opening channel screens they generously made for me. See you on the next one, and as always, take care, God bless you all, and keep on shining.